Welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. If there's one thing I like doing, it's fishing in hot, sunny climes for big game fish, hard fighting fish. One of the hardest fighting fish you're ever going to catch is the tuna. But there's a wide variety of different species of tuna, from the giant bluefin tuna right down to the little small skipjack tunas, or even the hardest fighting one, the blackfin tuna. One of the more popular ones that the angler or sport fisherman's going to run across is called the yellowfin tuna. I've always wondered, how long do they live? Where do they migrate to? How old do they get? That sort of thing. What do they feed on? Well, there's a lot of research going on around the world. I managed to get in touch with one of them when I was on a trip abroad. Here's Kate. She's going to give us some really interesting stuff about one of the projects she's been working on with yellowfin tuna.
Hi, I'm Kate Downs and I am currently working on Ascension Island. We're working on a marine biodiversity project called the Ascension Island Marine Sustainability Project. It's a 2-year project that's funded by the Darwin Initiative, and part of the work we're doing is looking at fisheries biology. So one of our study species is the yellowfin tuna. So we are doing ageing and reproductive biology studies. So we collect the otolith, which is the ear bone of the tuna, and that helps us with the ageing. We can process them in the lab, and they lay down annual growth rings, which we can then read under a microscope, and that will give us the age of the fish. We also collect the gonad, which is the reproductive organ, and we do a process called histology, which then looks at the cell structure, and we can gauge the maturity stage of the gonad to see if the yellowfin tuna populations that are utilising Ascension's waters are reproductively mature here, and if there are any spawning grounds close by. And a separate study that I'm also doing is looking at the yellowfin tuna diet. So I collect the stomachs of the tuna and bring them back to the lab and analyse them to work out exactly what they've been eating and how much they've been eating. This should give us an insight into not only their diet and the prey items that they consume, but also if there's a more resident population of yellowfin tuna around Ascension, as what we've been finding recently is that a lot of the large tuna, so over 100 kilos, predominantly feed on blackfish, which is a very localised population around Ascension and very abundant, and it was previously thought that they had no natural predators, but the tuna are definitely eating them, and in some of the very, very big tuna, so over 100 kilos, we're actually finding upwards of 20 to 30 blackfish within the stomachs. So once we've collected the otoliths from the tuna, we set them into a resin block like this one, and we then use this, which is a dedicated otolith saw, and what it actually does is it cuts a very thin section through the otolith. So you end up with quite thin strips, and they're 350 microns thick, and that is what we then put onto a slide, and then we look under on the microscope. Another part of the project also covers looking at the distribution of the yellowfin tuna. So we have 2 types of tags that we have been deploying. The first one is a satellite tag, and this is made by wildlife computers. So this part here is the anchor point, which goes into the fish. So it is actually placed within the dorsal mass of the fish, into the muscle there. And this part here is the sensor. Now these are pop-up archival satellite tags. So what they do is they're deployed. We program them first using a computer program and a USB stick. They are programmed to record depth, temperature and location, and they do that by geolocation, by using light. So we actually have 2 methods of deploying them. We use this, which hooks onto the anchor point here, and that's when we have been line fishing for the tuna. So we bring the tuna up onto the boat, we take the weight and the length, and then we pop the tag in. And another way that we've been deploying them is actually using a modified spear gun tip, and being in the water with the tuna, chumming, getting them to come up, and then getting within sort of 1.5 meters, 2 meters range, and shooting the tag into the tuna in exactly the same place that we do when we use this one here. Okay, so with the satellite tags, we deployed our first round, which was 7 tags in November 2014. We programmed them to stay out for a year, so we are still awaiting the data for those. So hopefully November 2015, they will pop up to the surface and then relay all of the information that they have accumulated over that time. We now have another 6 that we need to deploy as soon as possible, really, and these ones are going to be deployed for 6 months, so we will actually be able to record a lot more data because they're being deployed for a less amount of time. And another tagging project that we're doing here as well are with these streamer tags, or also known as PIMA tags, which is plastic intramuscular tags. So these are deployed much the same way as the satellite tags. This is the anchor point here. It goes into the same place on the tuna within the dorsal muscle mass. These tags obviously don't record anything, but what they have is a unique tag identifying number, and then they have our address and our telephone number. So these are deployed purely to see if, or to see how long they've been deployed. So we know exactly when these were put out and the length and the weight of the fish, and then hopefully we get some recaptures of these ones and we can measure the time that they've been at large, for how long, and if the fish has grown within that time, and also would give us some indication of where they've been travelling. So that's why we have our contact details on them, so if they go much further afield, then anybody that picks them up would be able to get these tags back to us.
That's weird, isn't it, eh?
It's one of the old ones because there's a growth going around the stem part of it.
So it's been there some time?
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Tag from here, you think? One of the ones?
Maybe.
Really?
So your skipper from last night, Kimbo, he's just come in and given me the tag that you guys caught of the tuna. I'm just checking on the database. This particular fish was tagged on the 5th of August at a location not that far from where it was caught. So it's actually been deployed for 2 months. So it means that that tuna has stuck around the island for the last 2 months. So the biggest yellowfin tuna that we have actually managed to take samples from was fairly recently. It was in July of 2015. It weighed 135 kilograms and was 201 centimetres in length, so just over 2 metres. So we are currently processing all of our samples that we collect from the yellowfin tuna, so all of the otoliths and the gonads. We are currently finding that the tuna around Ascension can be anywhere upwards of 15 to 20 years old. Previously published literature actually states that they only live to around 5 or 6 years old, but we are definitely seeing different here. So it's going to be a really interesting study, and hopefully we will be able to publish our results at the end of the project. Just to note, for any sport fishermen, line fishermen, spear fishermen, if any of you see either of the tags or actually manage to catch any fish with those tags on, let us know. We would arrange collection, or just love to know that you had actually seen one.